My name is Jessica, and at 18 years old, for my 18th birthday, my parents got me a new laptop. I was surprised since they never got me anything expensive before, but when I opened it, I saw this on the screen and my blood ran cold. I didn't cry. I took action. The next day, police were at the door. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. See, my family wasn't exactly the kind of family that spoiled me. My brother Daniel. Yes. Me? Not a chance. If there was a favorite child, it was him without question. He was always the golden boy, the sun they all orbited around. Me? More like the houseplant they remembered to water if they happened to notice I was wilting. So when my 18th birthday rolled around, I didn't expect much. Honestly, I didn't expect anything at all. Maybe a used sweater from Mom's closet, or some practical gift like socks. Something cheap, something that reminded me that my brother was the star of the show, and I was just lucky to be in the audience. But then this box appeared on the table, wrapped, shiny, rectangular, in that unmistakable expensive electronics way. I blinked at it like it was a hallucination. "This is for me?" I asked, half expecting them to laugh and slide it over to my brother like, "Gotcha, silly girl." My mom smiled in that tight, unreadable way she has. My dad nodded once. Daniel leaned back in his chair, smirking like he already knew something I didn't. I should have known right then that something was off, but I didn't because inside my heart was doing somersaults. It was just the four of us. No cousins, no aunts, no big celebration, just a tiny family birthday at home, cake on the counter, and this unbelievable box in front of me. My parents watching me with those eyes that said, "Look how generous we are." My brother watching me with eyes that said, "Wait until you see the punchline." I peeled off the wrapping paper with shaky fingers, and there it was, an Apple laptop. Brand name, sleek silver. For a second, I forgot to breathe. They had never bought me anything this expensive, ever. Not once in my life. I grinned like an idiot. "Wow, thank you." And in that moment, I actually believed it. I believed they loved me. I believed this was the turning point, the moment where they finally saw me as worthy of something other than hand-me-downs and leftovers. I should have known better. Later that night, I carried it upstairs to my room, practically glowing. I sat on my bed, staring at the box like it was proof that I belonged, my own shiny miracle. And then I opened it. The first crack in the illusion came fast. Scratches, little ones, faint, but there, etched across the silver casing. My smile faltered. Maybe they'd bought it secondhand. Okay, not ideal, but still, it was mine. But then I noticed the keys. Some were already slightly worn, the letters rubbed just faintly. You don't see that on something brand new. My heart sank. Still, I tried to convince myself maybe it's just refurbished. Lots of people buy refurbished laptops, right? That doesn't mean they don't love me. It doesn't mean they don't care. I powered it on. The screen lit up. And that's when things got stranger. At first it looked normal, but then I saw something odd. A section of the computer I didn't recognize, a drive or a folder. Something sitting there, like a locked door in a house you're told is yours. I clicked around. Most of it was grayed out, but then suddenly I was inside. A strange partition. And there they were. Files. Not many. Not clean, either. Some half-deleted with weird names I couldn't understand. Random spreadsheets, things that looked like logs, numbers, and codes that made no sense to me. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a refurbished laptop. This wasn't just not new. This was someone else's laptop. And deep down, I already knew whose. I shut the lid quickly, like the files might jump out and bite me. For a second, I just sat there staring at the closed laptop on my blanket, the glow of my birthday still clinging to me like a cruel joke. This wasn't love. This wasn't generosity. This was something else. I thought back to the way they'd looked at me when I opened the gift. My mom's tight smile, my dad's silence, my brother's smirk. At the time, I'd told myself they were just awkward, that maybe they weren't used to giving me nice things. But now I wasn't so sure. I tried to shake it off. Don't overthink. It's just an old laptop. Who cares if it's not new? But my chest felt tight. My instinct screamed that something was wrong. I pushed it under my bed like hiding it would make it less real, but it didn't work. Even lying there in the dark, I could feel it, like the laptop itself was humming with secrets, and I kept replaying their faces in my mind. Something was off. way off. Here's the part where I wish I could say I was overreacting. That the next morning I laughed about it, decided I was being paranoid, and everything went back to normal. But that's not what happened. Because that laptop wasn't just a disappointment. It wasn't just another reminder that I'd always be second best in this family. It was something far worse, and soon I was going to find out exactly how bad. I didn't just wake up suspicious. I've had years of training. My family made sure of that. See, my brother was the golden child from day one. Me, I was just background noise in his movie. Take birthdays, for example. His were practically national holidays. He'd get towers of gifts, the newest gadgets, and Mom would beam like she'd just given birth to Jesus Christ himself. Me? I got secondhand Barbie dolls and sweaters that smelled suspiciously like mothballs. One year they gave me a book about how to be more positive. Happy birthday, kid. I learned early on that in my family, love was measured in dollar signs, and my account was always empty. When we were kids, the differences were brutal. I still remember his 10th birthday. He got a shiny new bike with racing stripes. Everyone clapped when he rode it around the driveway like he was auditioning for a commercial. My turn came a year later. Guess what I got? His old bike. Still had mud on the tires. They slapped a bow on it and told me not to complain. And that was the pattern. He got a brand new iPhone. I got his cracked old one after he'd upgraded. He got shoes in the store. I got shoes in the box they came in, handed down 6 months later. I used to joke that my middle name was previously owned, except no one laughed. By the time we hit our teens, I'd stopped pretending things would ever change. He was older, smarter in their eyes, destined for great things. I was just there, the background character in his highlight reel. When he moved in with his girlfriend, I thought maybe finally I'd get a little space. He was out of the house, living his golden boy life, and I could at least exist in peace. But no, he was still there. He'd show up at the parents' house constantly, sometimes with the girlfriend, sometimes without. And every time he'd vanish into his old room and shut the door like it was Fort Knox, hours and hours on his laptop, tapping away like the fate of the world depended on his keystrokes. And me? I barely existed in those moments. If I dared knock, he'd snarl. If I asked what he was doing, he'd say, "Nothing you'd understand." At the time, I shrugged it off. Maybe he was gaming. Maybe he was hustling some side gig. Maybe he was just wasting time like he always did. Whatever it wasn't for me to know. But here's the thing. I remembered the laptop. Silver Apple logo. Sleek. Daniel carried it around like it was a crown jewel. And when I sat there on my bed on my 18th birthday, staring at the laptop my parents had just given me, scratched, slightly worn, not so new, something inside me twisted because I knew I'd seen it before. This wasn't just another disappointment. This was different. I couldn't stop replaying their faces when they handed it to me. Mom's tight smile, Dad's silence, Daniel's smirk. They weren't giving me a gift. They were watching me unwrap a trap. I didn't know what kind yet, but the pit in my stomach told me this wasn't just another cheap joke at my expense. This was worse, much worse. Looking back on my childhood, it almost felt like training. Every shrug, every be grateful for what you get, every reminder that I came second. All of it had built me into someone who expected nothing, who kept her guard up, who saw betrayal coming a mile away. Except this time, I hadn't. I'd let myself hope, and that made the crash feel like free fall. I sat there on my bed, staring at the laptop, my chest tight. This wasn't safe. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was tired, emotional, overthinking. But deep down, I knew better. Something about this laptop was wrong, and I was about to find out just how wrong. I didn't have to wait long for the next crack in the illusion. The very next day, I was sitting in my room with that cursed laptop staring at me from the desk. It felt like it was breathing in the corner, waiting for me to open it again, daring me to poke around. I didn't. I just let it sit there like a rattlesnake in a shoebox. And that's when I heard them. Voices drifting up the hallway from the kitchen. Mom's low hiss, Dad's rumble, and Daniel's smug little chuckle. Normally, I wouldn't think twice. I'd wander in, grab some water, maybe make a sandwich. But this time, no. My skin prickled. Something in me said, "Don't go in. Listen first." So I did. I crept down the hall barefoot, keeping to the edge of the carpet where it didn't creak. I stopped just outside the kitchen doorway and pressed my back to the wall, heart pounding, palms sweating. I felt like a kid again, sneaking cookies after bedtime. Except this time, what I was about to steal wasn't sugar. It was the truth. At first, the conversation was muffled, almost ordinary. Dad said something about bills. Mom muttered about groceries. For a second, I thought maybe I was paranoid, that I'd worked myself into a frenzy over nothing. And then Daniel's voice cut through, sharp and mocking. She'll just think it's secondhand. She's too stupid to notice anything else. My stomach dropped. I pulled my phone from my pocket and without even thinking hit record. If my instincts were wrong, I'd delete it later. But if they weren't, well, then at least I'd have proof. The air in the kitchen shifted. Mom's voice, sharp as broken glass. If you hadn't decided to scam people in the first place, we wouldn't even be here. But since you did, the least you could have done was cover your tracks. Forgetting the VPN? Really? VPN. Even I knew what that meant. Privacy. Hiding your tracks online. And Daniel forgetting? My brother was careless sometimes, but not with his precious laptop. It was one time, Mom. Daniel snapped back, defensive. Relax. The police can't prove anything. Nobody's going to trace a few fake accounts back to me. And even if they did, the laptop's not mine anymore. I pressed myself harder against the wall, my heart slamming in my chest so loud I thought they might hear it. Dad spoke then, calm and deliberate, the way he always did when he thought he was the smartest person in the room. Listen, if the police come knocking, it won't be for you. It'll be for her. The laptop's in her room now. They'll think it's hers. She's 18. They won't do much to her. I nearly dropped my phone. There it was. The trap. The reason behind the scratches, the hidden files, the partition that made no sense. They hadn't given me a gift. They'd given me a time bomb. And they were perfectly happy to let me take the hit when it exploded. Daniel laughed then, low and smug. She won't even figure it out, he said. I almost burst into the room right then just to wipe that smirk off his face. But I didn't. My hands were shaking too much. My throat was too tight. And my phone, thank God for my phone, was still recording every word. I pulled back from the doorway, moving as quietly as I could. My whole body felt electric, like I'd just stuck my finger in a socket. I'd always known they didn't love me the way they loved him. I'd always known I came second or third, or maybe not even on the scoreboard. But this was different. This was betrayal. They hadn't just overlooked me. They'd used me. They'd set me up like a pawn in their little game of protecting Daniel. Back in my room, I shut the door and locked it, my breath coming fast and shallow. I looked at my phone. The recording was still running. I stopped it, saved it, played it back just to be sure. Their voices filled my room, cold and clear, my proof. I sat on the bed, staring at the laptop on the desk, my so-called birthday present, the evidence they'd planted on me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop out the window and watch it smash into 1,000 pieces on the driveway. Instead, I started packing. I didn't pack like someone going on a trip. I packed like someone running for her life. Wallet, phone, charger, clothes stuffed into a backpack, and of course the laptop. I shoved it all in, hands trembling so badly I dropped my charger twice. My brain was on fire, buzzing with panic and anger and disbelief. They really did this to me. My parents, my own parents, and Daniel, my perfect golden brother. I paused then, looking around my room, at the posters on the wall, the books stacked on my nightstand, the blanket on my bed, the last 18 years of my life, and none of it mattered. None of it was safe anymore. I zipped the bag and slung it over my shoulder. Then I opened the door, walked down the hall, and called out casually, "I'm going to a friend's. Be back later." My voice didn't even shake. And then I left. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. Cool, sharp, real. My lungs felt like they could finally expand again. But my heart was still pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I walked fast, not daring to look back at the house. Every step felt like it echoed. Traitor, traitor, traitor. Only this time, I wasn't the traitor. They were. As I reached the corner, I stopped for a second, gripping the straps of my bag, staring down at the pavement. I thought about the recording on my phone, the files hidden inside that laptop, the smug laughter I'd just captured. I thought about Daniel smirking in the kitchen, safe in the knowledge that Mom and Dad would always cover for him. And I thought about myself, 18 years old, suddenly on the run from my own family. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not tonight. Not ever. I didn't even pack properly. Just threw my wallet, charger, toothbrush, and a few clothes into my bag like I was on the run from the FBI, which, given the way things were going, wasn't entirely off the mark. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't want anyone I cared about pulled into this mess. Instead, I walked straight to the police station, the laptop heavy in my backpack like a ticking bomb. When I slid it across the counter with shaking hands and told them my story, the gift, the hidden partition, the recording on my phone, I half expected them to laugh, or worse, to look at me the way my parents always did, like I was making trouble again. But they didn't. They wrote it all down, took the laptop and my statement, and gave me a receipt for the evidence. Very polite, very official, very anticlimactic. Then I walked back out into the night with nothing but my bag and a feeling like I'd just detonated my whole life. I couldn't face anyone I knew, so I checked into the cheapest hostel I could find. The kind with stained carpets, bunk beds that creaked if you breathed too hard, and strangers who looked like they'd steal your shoes while you slept. Perfect. I locked myself into that bed with my backpack under the pillow and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed on the nightstand like a wasp trapped in a jar. At first, the messages were worried. Where are you? Why didn't you come home? Are you safe? For a moment, I almost caved, almost answered with something reassuring, almost slipped back into being the good daughter who smoothed everything over. But then I remembered the kitchen, the smug laugh. It'll fall on her. So instead, with shaking fingers, I typed out 4 words, "I'm not coming back," and I hit send. That was it. The bridge burned. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed, showered in a bathroom that smelled like mildew and despair, and went to work. On the outside, I was normal. I smiled at customers, took orders, restocked shelves. On the inside, I was screaming. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket all day. I ignored it. By the end of my shift, there were over 40 missed calls. Day 2 in the hostel felt worse. The bed springs stabbed me in the ribs all night. And every time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's voice. She won't even figure it out. My parents' messages shifted tone. Less worried, more sharp. Call us back. We need to talk. What did you do? I ignored them all. At work, I caught myself glancing at the door every 5 minutes, terrified they'd walk in. On day 3, they did. I was wiping down a table when I saw them through the front window. Mom's jaw tight, Dad's arms crossed, just standing there watching me. My blood ran cold. I pretended not to see them, pretended to be busy, but I could feel their eyes boring into me the whole shift. When closing time came, I slipped out the back door and practically ran the whole way to the hostel. That night, I lay awake in the dark, heart pounding, convinced they'd follow me there. Day 4. The dam finally broke. I was at the register when they stormed inside. Mom's voice was a hiss, sharp enough to cut glass. What did you tell them? My father's voice was a rumble behind her. Why are the police at our house? The cafe went silent. My coworkers froze. Customers stared. My throat closed. But then something inside me snapped. Years of swallowing my words. Years of being second best. Years of being told to be grateful for scraps. It all burst out. You tried to frame me, I shouted. Every head in the cafe turned. Mom's face went white, then red. Dad looked like he wanted to crush me under his shoe. Daniel wasn't there, but I could practically hear his smug laugh echoing in the silence. I set down the rag in my hand, leaned across the counter, and said it again, lower this time, dead cold. You tried to frame me. They didn't even deny it. They just glared, then stormed out, the bell on the door jangling behind them. I stood there shaking, my coworkers staring, the whole room buzzing with whispers. But I didn't cry. That night, back at the hostel, the calls turned vicious. Voicemails stacked up, full of venom. You betrayed us. You ruined your brother's life. You destroyed this family. I let the phone buzz against the mattress until it went silent. On day 5, the message came. I didn't pick up the call, but I listened to the voicemail. My mother's voice, shrill and furious, shrieked through the speaker. Are you happy now? Your brother's been arrested. The police took him away in handcuffs. He's in jail because of you. I sat there on the edge of the hostel bed, listening to her words over and over. It should have felt like victory. Proof I wasn't crazy. Proof I wasn't the one at fault. But all I felt was empty. Because even now, even with Daniel arrested, my parents still couldn't see the truth. To them, I was the villain. The traitor. The disposable one. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Smiled at customers, made change, poured coffee. Inside, I was shaking. Outside, I was steady. That's the funny thing about surviving a family like mine. You get very good at wearing masks. And as my phone buzzed in my pocket with another angry voicemail I'd never answer, I realized something. For the first time in my life, the mask wasn't for them. It was for me. Because I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was free. Months later, it was over. Daniel wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was an inmate. The truth came out in court. He'd been tricking older people, men and women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, into trusting him with their savings. He told them he'd buy cryptocurrency for them, manage the accounts, make them rich. They believed him, but he never bought a thing. He just kept the money. 27 people, around $180,000. For some, it was their retirement fund. For others, it was all they had. The judge didn't buy his excuses. 5 years in prison, maybe 3 if he's lucky. My parents, they never forgave me. Not for protecting myself, not for telling the truth. They called, they raged, they begged. I blocked them. Now the only voices in my life are the ones I choose. I live in my own place now. It's small, the walls are thin, the sink leaks. But when I walk in at night, it's mine. All mine. I pay the rent. I buy the groceries. I stand in the silence and let it wrap around me like a blanket. For the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the next betrayal. I'm free. They gave me that laptop to destroy me. Instead, it saved me. So, what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for Gamensha Tamai